you've been talking about RECs and offsets and carbon credits. Generally, those are referred to as environmental attributes. I think it's something that a lot of people are trying to kind of wrap their head around how this all works and what means what. Could you share a little bit about that, Sara?
Yeah, so sometimes it's a little bit of an alphabet soup, and what is an environmental attribute? And as you said, how does a renewable energy certificate or a REC compare to a carbon credit? So at a high level, these are all different types of environmental attributes. They're really fundamentally a bookkeeping tool to keep track of the impact from a project. And so the idea is that each megawatt hour of electricity that comes from a renewable energy project generates 1 megawatt hour worth of an environmental attributes. And by tracking that attribute, you can be sure that you're not so-called double counting or sort of assigning the benefit of that renewable generation in more than one place. The typical types of environmental attributes, you see them all listed here. You can talk about tracking in terms of renewable energy generation. You can talk about tracking in terms of carbon credits. Again, both environmental attributes, it's just a question of what you're measuring. So the renewableness versus the carbon. And then within carbon credits, you start to get into the weeds of the different ways those are quantified. But fundamentally, they're really a tool for tracking. And the one you use depends on what you're interested in.
Mm-hmm. That brings me to the next point. So why do companies have to understand this? Like, why is this important? If you're like in a company, your CEO told you, hey, look into these PPA deals. Why should you look into this? Why do you need to understand what's the difference?
Yeah, so one of the first things is that, if you're buying renewables for either the sustainability benefit or in order to monetize them, it's really important that you know what happens to the environmental attributes and that, you're purchasing them through your deal and you're able to use them how you want. As I mentioned, in general, they make sure that there is no double counting, so that, you can't claim the benefit of generating renewable electricity twice. It's not that one is better than the other. It really depends on the goals that you have through renewable energy procurement. And so first you need to decide what kind of EAs you want to track. And then the second question or decision point for a company is, what do you want to do with them? Is your motivation around sustainability, in which case you want to retire those attributes or making them, holding them permanently? Or do you actually want to, use them towards, monetize them or use them towards an external carbon goal? And again, both are valid choices to make. It really depends on the motivations that you have. And there are actually guidelines from the government of Canada around, how you can make different claims depending on what you're doing with your environmental attributes. So it's not just a matter of, doing the right thing, but there's actually, guidelines and that can be followed.
Thank you, Sara. So if you want to know more about that, we have actually a really cool two-pager that Sara authored on our accessible for members of the BRC, where you can learn more about that. And we also have some examples. So for example, what do you do if you want to use these environmental attributes for your renewable energy target? Or what's the difference to using it with your carbon target? Or if you are a company in Alberta that falls under the large emitters regulation, the tier regulation, how does this all fit together? And what do you have to have in mind? So we have a two-page on that. We can help you with that. We can provide you with more information.